Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an appropriations hearing, so we're trying to figure out, do we have the money right? If we go back into sequestration next year, if there's not some relief from sequestration, how much damage will that do to our ability to deal with the threats we just discussed?
Well, it does a lot of damage. It does the physical damage, meaning of that we can't pay for the things that we have programmed.
Would it seriously compromise the ability to defend this nation?
It does.
You agree with that, General Dunford?
I do, Senator.
Since 2011, when sequestration first went into effect, we've had the Syrian civil war, the collapse of Libya, the rise of ISIL holding territory the size of Indiana, Russia's invasion of the Ukraine, annexation of the Crimea, China's building islands over resource-rich waters claimed by others. The Iranians are destabilizing the Mideast. They are de facto control of 4 capitals, and North Korea is running wild. Is that a fair assessment of the highlights of what's happened since 2011? I may have left a few out.
I think it's a fair assessment. It's a dangerous world out there, and that's why we got to avoid sequestration.
Since 2011, we've cut defense spending by $150 billion. Does that make any sense to you, given the threats I just described?
I described in my opening statement my
Do you agree with that, General Dunford?
Over the budget over the last 7, 8 years, the way it's happened.
Do you agree with that, General Dunford?
I agree. It doesn't make any sense, Senator.
The last time we looked at a strategy-driven budget, not across the board hitting an artificial number, was 2012, when you looked at the strategies we need to deal with the threats we face. We're $400 billion short of funding that strategy. Would you say now's the time to close that gap?
2 things about that. You've got to, we have done our job, which is to create our budget around our strategy. I described that strategy and the principal threats that it needs to counter. The only thing I'd say about 2012 is it's now 2016, and so things are different. And I think you gave some examples of ways in which things are different.
If we were 400,
so we're not trying to carry out a strategy that is 4 years old. We're trying to carry out our strategy of today, and where we have a Russia that is more clearly problematic than it was 4 years ago. We have the ISIL campaign to wage. So both in the base and the OCO, you see reflected the strategy that's appropriate to right now.
Got you. So we're $400 billion short in 2012, and the threats were less then. What percentage of DOD's budget is health care?
The health care is about $50 billion out of the 500 oddish, so about a little over 10%.
Where will it be in 15 years?
Well, it had been growing as healthcare costs had throughout the country in a really unsustainable way.
Is it still
up until
unsustainable?
about 2 years? No, it has slowed. I don't think that we take credit for that. Our own management in that regard. That's a trend you see around the country as well. But it's very welcome to us because $50 billion is a lot of money. We want to take good care of our people and their families. But $50 billion.
We haven't had a premium adjustment in TRICARE since 1995 of any significance. Is it time to have a premium adjustment?
We have made some adjustments, and we are proposing more this year.
What percentage of TRICARE cost absorbed by the patient population?
Let me ask if Undersecretary McCord knows. I'm sure we can get you that number. It is dropped.
It's 5%, I think. So get back with me on that. Just got back from Morón, Spain. Marines are doing a great job, as they do everywhere. Their goal, their mission there is to provide quick reaction force in case one of our embassies or consulates in that part of the world in Africa finds itself in a situation of Benghazi. They fly the V-22. I was told they have 2 teams that can pre-position and in a couple of days get to where we need to go. They're doing the best they can with what they have. I was also told, due to training problems with our pilots, they're going to have to take 6 of the V-22s out of the fight, to redeploy them back to the United States to have more planes so that our pilots can meet their training requirements. Have you heard that, General Dunford?
Senator, I have, and I will tell you that is characteristic of the aviation enterprise across the board. There's not enough of what we call ready basic aircraft to maintain.
I want this committee to know if there's a bad situation next year that the Marines cannot get there. That because of budget problems, we're having to take aircraft out of the fight, redeploy them back to the United States, and their capability to deploy is going to be cut in half.
Senator, if I can touch on that, we looked at this pretty hard. We can meet the requirement. You know, I realize you were just in Marone, but I personally, in a previous life, not in this job, in a previous life, spent a lot of time on this issue.
Are they going to take the 6 airplanes back?
They are, and there's going to be sufficient planes to meet the requirement established by the combatant commander, and that will allow us to sustain. Here was the choice we had. We can meet the requirement once or twice with the contingent of aircraft that are on the ground right now, or we can meet the requirement on a sustained basis with an adjusted level of aircraft. Were I to have the perfect world, I would have been able to do both, which is have sufficient aircraft back home in a sufficient deployment to dwell rate and thicken the operational forces forward to mitigate risk further. What I'm confident of is that we have the minimum aircraft to meet the combatant commander's requirement, and no, I'm not happy that we had to reduce the number from 12 to 6. That does reduce the flexibility, it reduces the depth, but it was a decision. I'll be honest with you, I was personally involved in that decision before
You
I
had to
changed
make
assignment.
that decision
I had to make that decision.
because we put you in that spot.
We were balancing risk on two sides. In the risk management we did was those 6 aircraft.
Can I just amplify that? That is a small piece of a major issue. The Marine Corps' principal readiness issue has to do with aircraft maintenance at this
The
time.
time of the senator has expired.